Right, so the integration, here we go. We'll get onto a demo next, no more PowerPoints. So the integration itself, we've built it directly to the Collibra API. So it's the latest Collibra API. There is no coding required. We've done all the work. It's all flexible and user configurable. So there's lots of different settings and parameters. We've found that many of our customers want to run the integration in a slightly different way. They've got a different approach. So we've tried to put in lots of parameters to give you flexibility on how the integration works. And there's really two parts to the integration. The first is the ability to synchronize the business glossaries. So in this diagram here, so if we look at the business glossary inside Collibra, we should get an identical view on selected glossaries inside Team Server. And you can choose which glossaries you synchronize. You might want some that only exist in Collibra, some that only exist in RStudio. And those that are mapped, they are kept fully in sync. As one changes, the other one updates. You can choose to say, if I create a business term in RStudio, so maybe a data architect has discovered a piece of information that it doesn't exist in the Collibra catalog, in the Collibra business glossary. We can create it over here, and it gets pushed over to Collibra, and then it goes through the Collibra workflow. So we really want to take advantage of those Collibra workflows. So the first part of it is synchronizing the business glossaries, and then the second part is those glossaries are then available to data architects to then map to data models. And then we want to be able to publish those mapped data models across to the Collibra catalog. So the Collibra acts as the catalog of catalogs, bringing in information from all sorts of different sources and reconciling that together to answer those important questions. What data is important and where is it? Right, I think it's time we actually looked at the demonstration. Okay, here we go. So this is RStudio Team Server Core, and I'm just going to go through a couple of little journeys. The first one is really sort of exploring the data model. So remember earlier on, I had my sort of corporate conceptual model, my corporate logical model, and then all my project models. And you can see those models here. There's my corporate and logical, and then I've got a whole bunch of project models. So I can expand these and then drill down. I've got the diagram already open. Here's a conceptual model. So I might want to start a journey. Oh, I'm looking for information. So I've got a small number of conceptual entities. I can drill down and say, oh, tell me all about employee at the conceptual level. Great. Where does this now map to in terms of my corporate logical model? So we've got some nice graphical views here. So I can see that employee at my conceptual level maps to, I've also got an employee in my more detailed logical model. So I can then see this, ask lots of questions about it, see all the attributes of an employee, and I can drill down again and say, from my corporate logical model, then where does it map to in terms of all of my project models? So this is sort of taking me through all my project models here. So that's one particular view. Now, what I was saying earlier on is that these models are pretty well defined. So if I go back up to my corporate logical model, I can see that I've got various different submodels with nice diagrams. So let's go and look at the training model here. I can click on this fella and I get a nice diagram. So for the purposes of designing and documenting data assets, I build these sorts of data models, a logical data model. And what we want to be able to do is to harvest from this. So all of these entities and the attributes and the relationships are well understood by the business. The language has been used many times to capture requirements from the business. So it's pretty well defined. So what we can do in here is, in the logical model, I've got a bunch of entities, and you'll notice we've got a little mechanism to harvest business terms. And if I click on that, I can select a target glossary, and then I can go through and choose which entities and attributes I want to become business terms. I can change the names of the terms. Maybe some of them aren't really relevant in my business glossary, so I can omit those, harvest any definitions, and then off we go. It'll harvest not only a bunch of business terms, but it'll harvest the relationships between them. And just to illustrate that in Team Server, so if we leave this screen here, go to my business glossary in Team Server, so I can go and find a business term called party. Great, there it is. See the definition of it. So maybe I'm looking for some information. So information about party. Ooh, I want to get a bit more specific. So what are the different subtypes of a party? So show me all of its full taxonomy. So a party could be an organization or a person could be an employee or a visitor. Ooh, employee information, that's what I'm looking for. So I go through, yep, confirm this is the right definition. Now I want to know information related to an employee. So I can see my related tab and see, well, hey, I've got an employee performs a process, holds a contract. Okay, well, it's really information about the employee specifically. So I want to see attributes of an employee. So this view is, again, I'm browsing through the ontology of my business glossary. So employee can have an employee number, a type, and then I arrive at the information I'm looking for. So all of this model of business terms potentially could have been harvested from our logical data models. Now, you'll notice at the top of each business term, there's a little bit of text that says open in Collibra. So if I hop across the fence, I can see in Collibra, here it comes, exactly the same term, all the same properties that have been pulled from ER Studio, all of the same relationships. So my business term is grouped by, so we saw it's grouped by employee, so it's part of an employee, it's an attribute of an employee. So we've synchronized those business glossaries between the two sides of the fence. So absolutely identical. As we change one, it'll update the other. We can choose to make Collibra the master and ER Studio the slave, or vice versa. We can choose whether we can't create new things in one side or the other. We've got flexibility, but really want to try and keep the two models absolutely identical and take advantage of the features of the two tools. So the next part of the mission, once we've got our business glossaries, we then want to start to model our data assets and map the two sides together. So I think many of you have already seen version 19 of ER Studio and Data Architect. So here is the thick client tool. So I'm busy designing a data asset here. Okay, and I've got an entity open called employee, or might be at the physical level and see a table called EMP. There's all my attributes. Now I've got a new tab in here. So there's business glossary. And if I hit add term, what I can see now is a list of all of the business terms, and these could have been created in Collibra. So here's a list of all my Collibra terms and allocated into different glossaries. And I can select one of those terms, read the description, and attach it to my entity, my attribute, my table, or my column. Okay, and I can map the two together. So all we want to do, so that journey of connecting the sort of the understanding of the schema of the data assets to our business glossary. We could do it in Collibra. We can get our technical data stewards to do that, or we can employ the unique knowledge, the intimate knowledge of the data assets that our data architects have got. These are the people that have designed these data assets. So deciding whether what this information is in terms of our business terms is we want to bring it closer to them in the tool that they use all day long. So, okay, so now we go back to we go and find it. There's employee number in team server. So we've got our business term. We now can go to related ER objects. So as we've mapped through either in data architect or here in team server terms of data modeling assets, I can see it here in the model. So in my Northwind model here, I've got a logical model with an entity called employees and an attribute called employee ID. Okay, so that's slightly different language in this project to our central business glossary, but somebody has mapped that, so it tells us exactly what it is. If I open up this fella down the bottom, HR database, again, I've got a logical model, employee entity, employee number. I've then got a bunch of two physical models here. So I've got a Snowflake database with a table called EMP and a column called EMP NMB. It's been mapped back to employee number. So the first part of the demo was really sort of what information is important to me, and I arrived at employee number. And then the second part is where is that in terms of my data dictionary of data models representing individual data assets, or even sort of across to my corporate logical data model. Now, again, we can publish all this to Collibra. So we've got flexibility in there for the data architects to choose which of these models we want to publish to Collibra and when do they publish them. So if we hop across the fence again to Collibra, there's employee number. So I can now see that employee number represents various data assets, logical and physical. If I just sort of go across here, so inside Collibra, within this particular community, which I call demo, I've got various data dictionaries. I've got, or domains. I've got a domain of type glossary that's holding all my business terms that might have come from ER Studio, or we've mapped them to ER Studio. I've then got three domains of two different types. So two of type physical data dictionary and one of type logical data dictionary. I expand my logical data dictionary. Then these data models, okay, again, these have all come from ER Studio, the same submodels you'd see in ER Studio. If I expand training, then I can see my employee entity, and then I can see, where is it, employee number. So that was mapped. If I click on employee number in my logical data model, then it's connected back to my business term. That mapping came from ER Studio. Employment number is part of the data entity, and then it's been mapped to some physical assets. Now, we go across here to diagram. So Ram was talking about guided stewardship. So some companies might not have a fully fleshed business glossary. They might want to start their governance project around logical data models. Put a lot of their sort of governance classifications around the logical models. So this guided stewardship view here is putting our entity and our attribute in our logical data model, employee number, right in the center of the model, and then connecting us to various physical models. So here we've got two physical models, both with tables called EMP. And this one is part of my SQL Server database HR training. Again, the table is called EMP, NMB. Again, all loaded from ER Studio, along with all of those mappings between them. Cool. Now that is the end of my demonstration. That's what I was going to show today.